What would you think if I told you that the very thing men try to control in women is the thing that renders their logic powerless? There is a force, untamed, ancient, unapologetically feminine, that doesn't speak in facts, but in fire. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't explain itself in bullet points or prove its worth with evidence. It exists. It pulses. It disrupts. And in its presence, the scaffolding of male logic, orderly, rational, predictable, begins to tremble. Most men fear what they cannot map, and the feminine in her rawest form is unchartable. Not because she is chaos, but because she is the mystery that logic cannot tame. She is the shadow that refuses to be labeled. She is the seduction of the unknown, not for pleasure, but for power. Her energy is not just emotional, it is archetypal. It is the unspoken language of life, of death, of rebirth. William James once spoke of the subliminal self, a vast reservoir beneath consciousness that houses our forgotten selves. The forbidden side of the feminine lives there, in dreams, in rage, in longing that has no words. It is the part of a woman that doesn't perform femininity. She embodies it. She is not polite. She is not agreeable. She is not digestible. She is a mirror, and most men cannot stand what they see reflected back. Their inadequacy, their fear, their own unclaimed shadow. And yet, this is the energy that magnetizes, not through submission, but through sovereignty, not by shrinking, but by expanding beyond the boundaries he thought defined her. She doesn't need to be understood. She only needs to be remembered. She is not the woman who waits by the door with folded hands and a well-rehearsed smile. She is the woman who walks away with silence that echoes louder than any plea. And in that moment, a man feels something he cannot name, a fracture in his reality, a void where control once lived. He tells himself she's irrational, emotional, too much, but in truth, she is simply free. This kind of freedom is dangerous, not because it harms, but because it reveals. The forbidden side of female energy exposes the hollowness of roles, the fragility of logic when stripped of feeling, the illusion of dominance in the face of authentic feminine power. Men who have not done the inner work, who have not faced their own emotional poverty, will try to reduce her. They call her crazy, hormonal, manipulative. But these are just projections of the psyche desperate to stay in control. The Stoics taught that what we fear controls us. And many men fear women not because of what they do, but because of what they awaken. She touches the part of him he locked away. The emotional self, the vulnerable self, the unguarded boy still waiting for permission to cry. And when she rises in her fullness, not to coddle, but to challenge, the mask of masculinity begins to crack. A woman in touch with her forbidden power doesn't need to chase. She doesn't seek to explain. Her energy is felt, not heard. And for the man unready to face himself, she is too much, because she is the mirror of his own not enough. He may try to possess her, thinking ownership will quiet the storm she stirs within him. He may offer her gifts, promises, protection, all laced with the unspoken desire to tame. But the feminine in her forbidden form cannot be caged. She is not the petal, soft and docile, but the root, deep, tangled, immovable. And when a man attempts to bind her, he only tightens the knots in his own psyche. Because the truth is this: she isn't his to hold, she is his to meet, if he dares. And most never do. Most retreat into logic, into control, into the sterile clarity of what makes sense on paper. But she doesn't live on paper. She lives in the liminal, in the space between words, between glances, between what is said and what is felt. That space frightens him because it demands presence, not performance. She doesn't need his validation. She doesn't require his understanding. What she asks, silently, defiantly, is for him to step beyond his defenses into the realm of the irrational, the emotional, the soulful, into the dark, into himself. But if he refuses, she leaves. Not out of bitterness, but out of knowing. She knows who she is. She knows what her energy carries, destruction and creation. The same force that can break him can also rebuild him. But he must choose transformation over control. And this is the forbidden truth most men are never told. The feminine doesn't want to dominate. She wants to awaken. But awakening is not gentle. It is fire. And most cannot bear the heat. And so, the wise woman stops apologizing for her fire. She no longer tries to water down her presence to soothe fragile egos. She recognizes the sacred violence in her nature, not to harm, but to strip illusions. She is not here to be liked. She is here to initiate. James wrote of the anima, the feminine archetype in the male unconscious, as both muse and tormentor. She seduces not with skin, but with symbol. She arrives as the woman he cannot forget, the one who lingers in dreams, the one whose silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. She is not there to comfort. She is there to confront his fear of vulnerability, his addiction to control, his rejection of the unknown. If you are this woman, if you feel this current rising in your bones, you know how often the world has tried to dim you. You were told to be nice, to be agreeable, to make him feel safe. But you were not born to make others comfortable. You were born to move tectonic plates beneath the surface of human behavior. You were born to be the whisper that becomes a storm. Men who are rooted, whole, unafraid, they do not flinch at your intensity. They do not recoil when you speak from the depths. They recognize you. They honor you. Because they too have faced their shadows and come out with eyes that can finally see. The feminine that breaks male logic is not out of balance. She is simply no longer willing to be small. And her refusal to shrink isn't rebellion. It's remembrance. She remembers the ancient self, the priestess, the wild woman, the oracle who spoke in riddles and dreams, whose presence once commanded kings to kneel, not out of fear, but reverence. Before she was rewritten by culture, before her body was politicized and her instincts were pathologized, she was the law, nature's law, not the law of control, but the law of truth. And truth, as William James understood, does not arise from reason alone. It is born in experience, in sensation, in the totality of being. The forbidden side of female energy is not wrong. It is repressed. It is the part of her psyche society taught her to exile, her anger, her desire, her knowing. She was told to call these things too much. But what if too much is just the right amount to awaken a sleeping world? When she stops apologizing for her needs, her boundaries, her mystery, something begins to shift, not just in her, but in everyone around her. The room responds to her without understanding why. Men feel it first, a sense of discomfort, perhaps even fear. But under that, fascination, because she moves differently. She doesn't speak from the mind, she pulls from the soul. Her gaze isn't flirtation, it's initiation. Her presence doesn't invite consumption, it demands respect. And when a man cannot grasp her with logic, when he cannot decode her with strategy, he is left with only one option: to feel, to surrender, to descend into his own unconscious, where her energy lives inside him too. She is not his opposite. She is his forgotten mirror. In that mirror, he does not see the obedient woman he was taught to desire. He sees the woman who does not need him and yet does not reject him. A paradox. She is open but not available, intimate but not owned. He cannot conquer her because she has already conquered herself, and this is what makes her unshakable. She does not bend for validation. She does not soften to be chosen. She stands, rooted in her worth, embodied in her truth, and lets the world rearrange itself around that. Her energy is not performative. It is sovereign. And when a man encounters it, he is stripped of all pretense. There is no role to play, no script to follow. Her presence calls forth the death of the false masculine and the birth of the initiated man. This is the terror and the liberation. For years, the world has punished women for this knowing, called them witches, hysterics, rebels. But what if they were never broken, only uncontainable? What if the shame was never hers to carry? What if her chaos was just a language that logic forgot how to speak? The masculine without the feminine becomes rigid, cold, detached. But the feminine without the masculine remains formless, untethered. It is only in their integration, through tension and surrender, that true power emerges. Not power over, but power with. And so she stops asking, "Will he love me?" and starts asking, "Is he willing to meet me here?" In the depth, in the dark, in the place where control dies and intimacy begins. Because to love her is not to hold her. It is to face oneself. To face her is to face the storm that lives in your own chest, the one you've ignored, intellectualized, buried beneath performance and politeness. The woman who embodies her forbidden energy doesn't seduce you with softness. She summons you with truth. She doesn't tell you who she is. She reveals who you are not. And if you flinch, if you flee, it isn't because she hurt you. It's because you met the part of yourself you've never been brave enough to hold. She has done her work. She has descended into her own underworld. She has met the girl who begged for love and the woman who bled for truth. And she carries them both with grace and fury. The wounds she wears are no longer signs of weakness. They are sacred symbols of battles faced, illusions burned, innocence reclaimed. And still she loves, but not like before. Her love no longer bends at the altar of being chosen. It no longer plays nice to earn crumbs of affection. Now, her love is a force. If she gives it to you, it is not because you earned it, but because she chose. And with that choice comes a responsibility few are ready to carry. To meet her not with dominion, but with devotion. Not to fix her, tame her, or save her, but to witness her. She does not chase love, because she no longer believes it lives outside of her. She is love, in its most terrifying, transformative form. And only a man who has burned through his ego will have the courage to stay when it roars. So she walks, not away from love, but toward truth. Her presence is no longer a plea. It's a standard, a boundary, a quiet demand that says, if you come to me, come clean, come whole, come real. Not perfect, not polished, but raw, willing, awake. The men who cannot meet her call her difficult, cold, delusional. But she has stopped defending herself. She knows these are not her names. They are projections cast by those unwilling to face the heat of her clarity. When she loved without self, they adored her. When she began to love with boundaries, they called her dangerous. But danger, to the unconscious, often looks like liberation. Her energy unravels the systems, not with rebellion, but with presence. She doesn't argue to be right. She is, and that is enough. The way she speaks, the way she moves, the way she simply exists, it disturbs the shallow because it demands depth. And not everyone is willing to descend. Yet for the few, the rare, who have faced their inner abyss and returned not with armor, but with honor, she becomes a homecoming. To them, she is not a puzzle. She is not too much. She is truth in a body. And to you, woman listening, this power has always lived inside you, buried beneath the noise, silenced by conditioning. But it is not gone. It waits for your permission, not to be unleashed, but remembered. Because the woman who owns her forbidden energy doesn't destroy men, she awakens the ones ready to rise. And when she fully remembers, when she stops performing, stops pleasing, stops molding herself into the shape that makes others feel comfortable, something miraculous happens. Not outside her, but within. The noise falls silent. The ache to be chosen dissolves. The question, am I enough, vanishes like mist in sunlight. Because now she knows, not as concept, not as affirmation, but as a lived, embodied truth. She walks into a room and something shifts. Not because of how she looks or what she says, but because of what she carries. Depth, dignity, fire tempered by soul. She does not demand attention. Reality bends around her without trying. And those still trapped in shallow waters will call her arrogant. But she is not arrogant. She is anchored. William James taught that consciousness is not a single stream, but a layered ocean, and the awakened woman swims in the deep. She no longer surfaces for approval. She does not beg for the gaze. She holds her own reflection and says, I see you, I choose you. And from that place, sacred, sovereign, she offers her energy not to all, but to the worthy. The man who has met his shame, befriended his fear, buried his old ego with reverence. The man who can stand in her intensity without collapsing into control. He will not try to fix her. He will witness her. Worship not the mask, but the depth. For she is not for the faint-hearted. She is for the man who is ready to die to everything false. He will not find her in places of ease, where comfort dulls truth and affection is traded like currency. He will find her in the sacred tension, where his logic fails, where his certainty dissolves, where nothing can be predicted, only felt. There she waits, not passively, not patiently, but present, entire unto herself. And when he arrives, not with a script, but with silence, not with bravado, but with breath, she will know, not by his words, but by his stillness. She will feel the absence of grasping, of proving, of pretending, and in that absence she will feel him. The masculine that meets her does not dominate, he does not shrink. He holds space like the sky holds the storm, unmoved but deeply moved. He is not afraid of her fire because he has walked through his own. He recognizes that her depth does not threaten his strength, it summons it. And so, he does not fear her tears, her rage, her silence. He knows these are not signs of chaos, they are prayers in motion. Together they do not complete one another, they challenge one another, they sharpen, they soften, they burn and rise and burn again, not to possess, but to liberate. Their union is not performance, it is alchemy. But she does not wait for him. She does not pause her evolution in hope of being met. She walks, with or without him, into her becoming, and that is why she is powerful. Because she chooses herself first, every time. And in choosing herself, she becomes undeniable. She becomes the unshakable presence in a world of shifting sands, a force not to be managed, but to be honored. Her energy breaks the frameworks built on control and predictability, not because she is reckless, but because she embodies a deeper wisdom, one that defies neat categories and sterile logic. She is paradox, mystery, and clarity all at once, a living testament to the fact that true power is never linear, never confined. The forbidden side of female energy is in essence a rebellion against the ego's attempt to domesticate the soul. It is the eruption of the unconscious feminine, long buried beneath layers of societal expectations, trauma, and silencing. It demands that men face their own shadows, the parts they hide, deny, and fear, and invites them into an initiation that is as terrifying as it is transformative. This energy is not a weapon to wield or a game to play. It is a calling. To embody wholeness, to live in truth, to move beyond the small self into something vast and wild. It disrupts not because it seeks chaos, but because it demands integration. And if a man resists, the woman who knows her forbidden power will not shrink to accommodate his fear. She will rise unapologetically, embodying the eternal dance of destruction and creation, shadow and light. For the woman who understands this, the world no longer dictates her value. She carries her worth in the sacred depths of her being, fierce and free. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. If this resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and join the journey into the depths of human connection, power, and transformation. Here, we unravel the mysteries of the heart and mind. Together. Stay fierce, stay free.